I never thought stepping up to save my father's company would end like this. For 5 long years, I poured my heart and soul into transforming our family construction business from a debt-ridden mess into a thriving enterprise worth millions. Meanwhile, my brother Jackson was living it up across Europe, not a care in the world. When he suddenly returned, I foolishly welcomed him back. I never imagined that after turning our $50,000 in debt business into a $3 million company, I would be locked out of my own office by security guards hired by my own brother. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from, and if my story resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Portland, Jackson and I were always different. Our father, Frank, started his construction company when I was 15 and Jackson was 17. Dad built the business from scratch with nothing but his toolbox and a second-hand truck. I admired his work ethic and spent weekends and summers learning the business, helping with paperwork, and eventually working on job sites. Jackson was the opposite. He had this natural charm that made everyone gravitate toward him. Teachers, neighbors, even our strict grandmother melted when he flashed that winning smile. While I was calculating profit margins and learning building codes, Jackson was throwing parties when our parents were away or talking his way out of trouble. When college came around, I chose business management with the specific goal of someday helping expand our father's company. Jackson, on the other hand, lasted exactly 3 semesters before dropping out. He claimed college was stifling his creativity. Dad was disappointed, but gave Jackson a job at the company anyway. Jackson showed up late, left early, and somehow still got praised for his people skills with clients. After graduating, I took a job with a commercial development firm to gain experience outside the family business. I wanted to prove myself on my own merits before returning to work with Dad. Those 4 years taught me valuable lessons about scaling businesses and modern construction techniques that would later prove invaluable. Everything changed when Mom called me in tears one night. Dad had suffered a major heart attack. He survived, but the doctors made it clear his working days were over. At 27, I faced a difficult decision. My career was taking off, but family came first. I moved back home with the hope that Jackson and I could run the company together while Dad recovered. The reality I discovered was far worse than I imagined. Dad had been hiding the company's financial troubles from everyone. We were nearly $50,000 in debt. Unpaid suppliers were threatening legal action. 3 major projects were behind schedule. The company trucks needed repairs we couldn't afford. Despite the grim situation, I felt a spark of hope when Jackson and I first sat down to discuss the future. For once, he seemed serious and engaged. He promised we would turn things around together. I shared my vision for modernizing the company, focusing on eco-friendly building practices that were becoming popular in Portland. Jackson nodded enthusiastically, suggesting we could be partners like Dad always wanted. That night, I stayed up until 3 a.m, creating a rescue plan. I truly believed my brother and I were about to embark on something meaningful together. I envisioned us rebuilding not just the company, but our somewhat distant relationship as brothers. Looking back, I realize how naive I was to trust someone who had never shown real commitment to anything in his life. The first sign that my hope was misplaced came just 3 days later. We had a crucial meeting with our bank to discuss restructuring our loans. Jackson texted me 20 minutes after the meeting should have started, claiming he had forgotten and was across town. I covered for him, but the bank manager was not impressed by our half-empty side of the table. A week later, Jackson showed up to a client meeting, visibly hungover. When the client stepped out to take a phone call, I confronted him. Jackson apologized profusely, promising it would never happen again. I wanted to believe him. 3 days later, he missed another important supplier negotiation. Meanwhile, Dad's condition worsened. The stress of knowing his business was failing affected his recovery. The doctors recommended full-time care that we could barely afford. Mom was exhausted from hospital visits. I was stretched thin between company emergencies, hospital visits, and trying to implement my turnaround plan. One evening, while reviewing company expenses, I discovered something that made my blood boil. Jackson had been using the company credit card for bar tabs, expensive clothes, and even a weekend trip to Las Vegas. When confronted, he shrugged it off as potential client entertainment. The receipts told a different story. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Jackson called a family meeting. Mom-Dad, who was home from the hospital temporarily, and I gathered in the living room. With casual indifference, Jackson announced he was taking a break to find himself. He had booked a one-way ticket to London, departing in 3 days. Dad was too weak to argue. Mom cried silently. I was speechless. The night before Jackson left, I tried one last time to reason with him. The company needed all hands on deck. Our father had built this business for us. We had a responsibility. Jackson patted my shoulder and said, Art, you have always been better at this stuff anyway. The company is probably safer with just you running it. I will send postcards. Just like that, I was alone. Alone with a failing company. Alone with $50,000 of debt. Alone with angry clients and unpaid vendors. Alone with our father's legacy crumbling around me. The next few months were the hardest of my life. I moved into a small office at the company headquarters, often sleeping on a fold-out cot because working 16-hour days made the commute home pointless. My relationship with Diane, my girlfriend of 2 years, ended when I missed her birthday dinner because a major client was threatening to pull their contract. My friends stopped calling after I canceled plans one too many times. The bank threatened to foreclose on Dad's house, which he had put up as collateral for a business loan years earlier. With no other options, I sold my downtown condo and used every penny of my savings to inject emergency cash into the business. Mom protested, but I insisted. I would not let Dad lose his home because of the business he built for his sons. Some of the old-time employees resisted my new ideas. They had worked with Dad for decades and saw me as the kid who used to fetch coffee during summer breaks. When I introduced new bidding procedures and modern project management software, several threatened to quit. One actually did. Each departure felt like another failure. I developed insomnia. Coffee became a food group. My car became a mobile office where I would take naps between job sites. During this time, I received exactly 2 postcards from Jackson, one from Barcelona with the message, working on my tan and loving the sangria. The second, from Berlin, simply said, found my spiritual home in the techno clubs. When the bank officially denied our loan restructuring request, I hit rock bottom. That night, sitting alone in the dark office, surrounded by past due notices, I contemplated giving up. Maybe Jackson had made the smarter choice after all. But then I remembered the pride in Dad's eyes when he first printed business cards with Carter and Sons Construction. I couldn't let that dream die. The turning point came unexpectedly. A former college classmate had started an architectural firm specializing in sustainable design. She remembered my interest in eco-friendly construction and reached out about a small but prestigious project, a visitor center for a local nature preserve. The budget was tight, but the publicity potential was enormous. I poured everything into that bid, researching innovative materials and energy-efficient techniques. When we won the contract, it felt like the first ray of sunshine after a year of storms. The project required specialized skills our current team lacked, so I carefully recruited fresh talent passionate about sustainable building. Their energy and expertise revitalized the company culture. Working around the clock, we completed the visitor center on time and under budget. The grand opening generated local press coverage that highlighted our green building methods. Suddenly, Carter and Sons had a new identity in the Portland construction scene. Inquiries began coming in from clients specifically looking for eco-friendly options. With our new direction established, I rebranded the company as Carter Green Construction. The phones started ringing more frequently. Small projects led to larger ones. By the 18-month mark, we were operating in the black for the first time since I had taken over. I paid off the most pressing debts and negotiated payment plans for the rest. Meanwhile, I received occasional updates from Jackson, a photo from Greece, a brief email from Prague, a drunken late-night call from Amsterdam. Each communication reinforced that he had no intention of returning anytime soon. Strangely, his absence became liberating. Without having to manage his unpredictability, I could focus entirely on growing the business. After 2 full years of relentless work, we landed a breakthrough, a contract for a municipal building that required LEED certification. The bidding process was intensely competitive, but our growing portfolio of sustainable projects gave us the edge. This single contract doubled our annual revenue and established us as serious players in commercial construction. The increased profits allowed me to create a special fund for Dad's medical care. I moved him to a better facility with specialized cardiac programs. During my weekly visits, I would bring photos of our latest projects. Though his condition remained serious, I could see the pride in his eyes as I described how we had transformed his company. By year 3, we expanded into neighboring Washington State, opening a small satellite office in Seattle. Our team grew from the original 8 employees to nearly 30. I promoted Sandra, one of my first hires, to operations director. Her organizational skills complemented my vision, creating a leadership dynamic that empowered the entire team. As the company stabilized, I finally began rebuilding my personal life. I joined a running group where I met Thomas, an environmental engineer, whose expertise proved valuable for several complex projects. We became friends and eventually partners, providing the emotional support I had neglected during the darkest days. The 4-year mark brought another milestone. A national construction industry publication featured our renovation of a historic building that we had transformed into a net-zero energy corporate headquarters. The article praised our innovative approach and commitment to sustainability. Overnight, our phone lines were flooded with inquiries from across the country. With this increased visibility came larger opportunities. We secured our first multi-million-dollar contract for an eco-friendly apartment complex. The project's success pushed our annual revenue past the $1 million mark. The company that had once been $50,000 in debt was now valued at approximately $3 million, with projections for continued growth. Then, without warning, Jackson returned. He showed up at the office one morning, tanned and seemingly carefree. Walking through our LEED-certified headquarters with its 30 employees and modern equipment, his jaw literally dropped. "Art, what have you done with the place?" he asked, as if he had just stepped out for coffee 5 years ago, rather than abandoning a sinking ship. Initially, I maintained a cautious distance. Jackson spent days wandering around job sites, examining our marketing materials, and asking questions about our client base. He seemed genuinely impressed, and for the first time in our lives, perhaps even respectful of my abilities. "I want to be part of this," he declared over dinner one night. After all, it is still Carter and Sons, right against my better judgment. But hoping he had matured during his years abroad, I created a vice president position for him. The role had limited responsibilities, primarily focused on client relations, where his natural charm could be an asset. The arrangement seemed to work initially. Jackson showed up on time, dressed professionally, and charmed potential clients. Then small concerning patterns emerged. Jackson began meeting with clients alone, making promises beyond our standard agreements. He questioned financial decisions in front of the management team. He suggested changes to our eco-friendly focus, arguing that traditional construction was more profitable. Most worrying, he began visiting Dad at his care facility frequently, something he had rarely done since returning. The final betrayal blindsided me completely. I arrived at work on a Tuesday morning to find 2 security guards blocking the entrance to my office. When I demanded an explanation, Jackson emerged from my office with a folder of legal documents. With a cold smile that held none of our shared history, He informed me that he now held controlling interest in the company. Through manipulation and deception, he had convinced our ill father to sign over his majority shares. Dad, whose cognitive function fluctuated due to medication, likely had no real understanding of what he was signing. Jackson had executed this plan, methodically preparing the legal groundwork while pretending to embrace his role in the company. "You always were the workhorse," Art Jackson said, with disturbing calm. "Thanks for building this cash cow. I will take it from here." When I protested, pointing out the years of sacrifice and growth he had contributed nothing to, he simply shrugged. "Dad put both our names on the company. I am just claiming what has always been partially mine." With that, Jackson Carter, my brother by blood, but nothing more, had me escorted from the building I had quite literally saved from destruction. My security access was revoked. My email shut down. My personal items from the office delivered to my home in a cardboard box. In one calculated move, he had stolen 5 years of my life's work. The shock left me paralyzed for days. I cycled through disbelief, rage, and crushing disappointment. I called Dad's care facility immediately, but was told by staff that Jackson had updated the approved visitors list. When I finally gained access 3 days later, Dad seemed confused about the entire situation. He remembered signing papers, but believed they were routine company documents Jackson needed while I was busy with projects. I consulted 3 different attorneys who all delivered the same grim news. While morally reprehensible, what Jackson had done appeared legally sound. Fighting it would require proving Dad's diminished capacity at the time of signing, potentially dragging our ailing father through stressful legal proceedings with no guaranteed outcome. For 2 weeks, I barely left my apartment. Thomas brought groceries and offered support, but I was lost in a fog of betrayal. Everything I had built, every sacrifice I had made, had been stolen by someone who had contributed nothing but had the right last name. The injustice was suffocating. The first sign of light came from an unexpected source. Sandra, my operations director, called to tell me she had resigned, along with 4 other key team members. Jackson was already dismantling the company culture, canceling our sustainability initiatives, and reverting to traditional construction methods to cut costs. She asked if I had plans to start over. That question sparked something in me. Could I start over? Did I have the energy to build again from scratch? The answer surprised me. Not only could I do it, but I suddenly realized I wanted to, this time without the burden of debt, family obligation, or my brother's shadow. Instead of fighting a legal battle for the past, I decided to create a future on my own terms. I incorporated Emerald Sustainable Construction the next day. With my reputation in the industry intact and the relationships I had built over 5 years, I secured a small business loan to lease office space and basic equipment. Sandra and the other departing team members joined my new venture, bringing their expertise and client relationships. Several clients unhappy with the changes Jackson was implementing followed us. Thomas leveraged his environmental engineering connections to introduce us to new potential partners. Within 6 months, Emerald had secured enough projects to hire back most of the talented staff who had left Carter Green Construction. We focused exclusively on sustainable building, positioning ourselves as specialists rather than competing directly with traditional construction companies. This niche approach quickly distinguished us in the market. Meanwhile, reports about Carter Green painted a troubling picture. Jackson had immediately abandoned our quality standards in favor of quick profits. Long-term clients were jumping ship. Talented employees were leaving. The reputation I had spent years building was disintegrating under his leadership. Almost exactly 1 year after my forced departure, I received an unexpected call from Dad's care facility. His condition had stabilized enough for longer visits, and he had been asking for me specifically. During our conversation, it became clear he finally understood what Jackson had done. The realization broke his heart, but also strengthened our bond. "I forgive you, Dad," I told him truthfully. "You always saw the best in both your sons. That was never your weakness. It was your strength." I maintained professional boundaries with Jackson, even when he began reaching out as his company spiraled downward. The final conversation came when he called, asking for a loan to cover payroll. Carter Green Construction was facing bankruptcy less than 2 years after he had taken control. When I declined financial assistance, he accused me of wanting revenge. That could not have been further from the truth. I had already moved beyond revenge. While I would not bail out my brother, I did offer to hire any remaining employees who would lose their jobs when his company inevitably folded. Several of them now form the backbone of Emerald's growing team. The experience taught me painful but necessary lessons. Family ties do not guarantee loyalty. Success built on betrayal is always temporary. Most importantly, sometimes losing what you poured your heart into forces you to build something even better, something truly yours. Today, Emerald Sustainable Construction is thriving. We recently completed our largest project to date, a zero-emission corporate campus that has won national recognition. My team of 45 dedicated professionals feels more like family than my own brother ever did. Thomas and I are discussing expansion into renewable energy integration for residential projects. Looking back the journey from that devastating Tuesday morning, when security guards blocked my office to where I stand now, seems almost impossible. But brick by brick, just like the buildings we construct, I rebuilt my life and created something stronger than before. Have you ever had to start over after betrayal or loss? What helped you find the strength to rebuild? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more journeys of resilience. And if you know someone facing their own rebuilding process, share this with them as a reminder that sometimes our greatest setbacks lead to our most authentic successes. Thank you for listening, and remember, the foundation of true success is built on integrity, not shortcuts.